This is a support video for the real Cobra Burnout. Boom! He wants to know of a funny drinking story that you had. I was on my last deployment in the Mediterranean, and we were we'd been out to sea for 30 days, 35 days straight, and that's my recollection. It was quite a while, and that same deployment we had a 2-beer day. And for some of you who landlubbers who don't know, in the Navy back then, when you were out to sea floating for more than 45 days, you're not allowed to have alcohol on the ship. But if you've been afloat for 45 days, meaning haven't pulled into port, you get 2 beers, and they have what's called Steel Beach. They'll take like the flattest, biggest area on the ship, and of course on the Wasp you get the flight deck, so that's a big flat surface, and they'll have a picnic. They have grills, and somewhere there's a lot of beer. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so towards the end of the deployment, we've been afloat for a long time, and we're getting ready to out-chop. Out-chop means to head to our last port before we head back to the States. Well, we were on the eastern side of Italy, up in the Adriatic Sea, and we're making our way down south around the boot of Italy, the heel. And we were told that we had to find a place to port because in the Mediterranean, north of Africa, there was a big sandstorm, and we didn't want to get caught in that sandstorm. And we're thinking, sandstorm in the middle of the ocean? Apparently it's a thing. So we pulled into a place called Brindisi, Italy. Anyway, yeah, right here. Right about here. And it's a sleepy little town on the heel of Italy, and we had to take we pulled into port, and to get into town to port, you had to take this bus. And it wasn't a school bus or anything. It was like a Greyhound type bus. Nice seats. So we ride the bus. It's about a 10-minute ride into town. And we get into town, and of course, the first thing we did, this was back in '96. So we didn't have cell phones so much, and we didn't have, satellite communication on the ship. I think we did. I think we had 2 or 4 satellite phones, but they were like, I think I paid $35 for 10 minutes or something like that. Anyway, so we head into town, and first thing we do is we get these phone cards. So we could use the pay phones to call home internationally. And I don't remember how much the phone cards were. They were, I think you can buy them in different increments, like $10, $20, $30, or liras back then. So I can't remember. I think I bought like a 10 lira card. And the pay phones, you had the slot, and you stuck the phone card into the slot, and it just charged it until it ran out of minutes. So and of course on top of that, they drop us in the main square, and so you dump a whole shipload of sailors into a town literally overnight, and so there's a shortage of phones. So we're standing there waiting on the phone. I am anyway. I'm with about 5 other guys in my detachment, and so we're waiting on phones, looking for bars, and so I'm waiting on a phone, and guy in my group comes up and hands me a Heineken. So I'm drinking, wait, and about every 10 minutes, a different guy, a buddy, comes up and gives me a Heineken, and it was the big one too. I don't think they were quite 40s, but they were bigger than the 12s. So I'm drinking that down, talking with other people in line, and then comes my turn to get to the phone. So I'm talking on the phone, and sure enough, every 5-10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, somebody walks up with another beer. So I'm drinking it. I get done with my phone call. I can't remember. I think it was a 2-beer phone call. And so I'm feeling pretty good. Now, mind you, I have not eaten yet. I think I ate lunch on the ship. This was probably about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I haven't eaten since maybe noon. So I recall I probably had about 6 beers at that point. 6 of the big Heinekens, because I think that was probably the cheapest beer they had, or the only beer they had. I don't remember. But for some reason, they kept bringing me Heineken. So we all get done with our phone calls, the group of us, and we go to this bar, and one guy says, "I want some Crown Royal." So we go to this bar, and we speak enough broken Italian and pointing to convey that we wanted this guy wanted a bottle of Crown Royal. He wanted the whole bottle. He just didn't want shots. So, of course, they sold it to him at some absorbent price, probably back then. I think he paid like $40 for this regular 750 ml bottle of Crown Royal. And he gets the plastic cups, and he orders 1 Coke. So, among the 6 of us, and I can't remember, I think we pitched in, $5-8 a piece to buy this bottle of Crown, and one can of Coke. And on the flip side, this wasn't a 12-ounce can of Coke. It was a 33 milliliter. It was a small Coke. So each of us got like a solo cup of Crown with like a spritz of Coke, and so we were sipping on that. And I don't recall how long. By that time, I don't recall how long it took to drink that up. So, and the rest of the night was a blur. The funny part's coming up. So the rest of the night is a blur, and I vaguely remember my one buddy. He says, "Hey, it's time to go back to the ship now." So I'm like, "All right, let's go back to the ship." So we make it to the bus, and at that time I'm starting to get the sweats. So we get on the bus, and I'm about four seats back, four rows back, and of course the whole bus smells like cigarette smoke, because everybody on the ship is, everybody at that time pretty much smoked, and then of course the bus was a diesel, so it smelled like diesel smoke and cigarette smoke and cheap cologne. I don't know what these guys were thinking. Some of these guys were just like bathing in cologne or something. But it was just a bad combination when you've had a wee bit much to drink. So then I start getting the sweats. My mouth starts to salivate. You know what's coming. Well, I knew I was in trouble. And the bus starts rolling. It's only a 10-minute ride, but I could not hold it any longer. And I look up, and next to the bus driver was this little like, I don't know, it was like a tube, but it was the trash container, trash can, but it was only, I don't know, 4 or 6 inches in diameter, and it had a plastic bag, plastic liner. So in my head, in my state of mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I can fill that thing. So the bus is going, and I didn't care. I mean, all care went out the door, and I stumbled. A bus moving, bumping. I stumble, and I'm on my knees, and my head goes right in that. I didn't care what was in that thing because I was going to fill it. It didn't matter. So I commenced to filling that thing, and the other guys on the bus were like, "Man, what a lightweight!" And of course, my buddy was sticking up for me. Yeah, you'd be puking your brains too if you drank a 6-pack of Heinekens and a fourth of a bottle, you know, quarter bottle of Crown Royal with nothing to eat. More like dumbass. To be young and dumb. So anyway, I get done filling that thing, and the bus driver's looking at me like, "Dude, you just didn't." And I just shrugged. So that's not the funny part. So I get back to my seat. I don't know. You know, it was all liquid, so it didn't. You know, I wasn't like blowing chunks or anything. So I get back to my seat. My buddy's like, "You gonna be all right, dude?" It's like, "Yeah, I think I'm all right now." Well, get back to the ship, and we have to go up what's called the brow, and it's a big ramp. I mean, the Wasp is a big ship, and even in port, it's probably about a good 40-50 feet above pier level. And you had to walk up this big gangplank and go across the brow, which is the final little ramp onto the ship. And there's what they call the quarterdeck there, and they have you know, a guy stationed there, a guard, so to speak. He's just another sailor that has guard duty for the night. And of course, there's an officer of the day there, but usually the officer's doing whatever officers do and just leave the enlisted guys in charge. Sometimes there's a chief there. It just depends. But the thing is, if you get back on the ship drunk and you can't walk, what they do is they put you in medical, give you an IV of saline solution to rehydrate you, and then you get in some kind of trouble. I don't know. But the requirement is that you just have to walk across the brow and present your ID card, ask permission to come aboard, you know, do all the sailor stuff to come aboard a ship. And if you pass that test, you're good to go. So we're walking up the gangplank, and I'm weaving left and right. And it's, from what I remember, the gangplank is just like this big steel ramp with strips of steel welded, you know, for traction. So I kept tripping on those things, and my buddy found out later he had grabbed me by the back of my shirt and, you know, like bunched up my shirt and made like a handle out of my shirt and just kind of grabbed onto the back of me and kind of guided me up the gangplank. And you know, he said I had enough wherewithal to pull my ID card out and ask permission to come aboard. I mumbled, you know, of course I probably wasn't the only one in that condition. So I make it across the brow, unscathed, so to speak, and I make it back to my bed, and I crawl in my bed, clothes and all. I don't think I even went to the bathroom to wash my face or anything. I was just done. So I crawl in my bed, my rack, and I commenced to falling asleep. And while I was sleeping, I had a dream that there was a guy who I had deployed with before, but he was on a different ship. In my dream, he was on a different ship, and we both, both ships pulled into Brindisi at the same time. And he said he had crossed deck or came over to our ship to ride back home. So I remember this lengthy, very vivid, lengthy conversation with him. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? What happened? Why are you going home? And he said, well, I got a family emergency or something. Just some conversation, but I remember seeing him with my own eyes. And so I fall. It's like, all right, well, I want to go back to sleep. So I go back to sleep. I remember it was cold. It was always cold in that compartment. So I remember pulling my blanket up over me, and I was shivering. I was just, I was shivering so hard it hurt. But I was so liquored up that I didn't care. I was kind of numb and sore at the same time, if you can figure that out. So I pulled the blanket up over me, and I finally was able to get warm enough to sleep through the night. And next morning, I I wake up and get my wits about me, and I look down. I'm laying in my rack, and I look down, and the reason I was so cold was when I pulled my blanket up, we fold them into these little squares, probably like 2 foot by 2 foot squares, and we put them at the foot of our rack. Well, I had not unfolded my blanket. I just pulled the whole thing up, so I had like this one square that covered my chest, over my shoulder, and the rest of me was exposed. Oh man, I was like, oh, no wonder I was cold. What a night. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story, and go check out The Real Cobra Burnout. Catch you later. Boom!